Welcome to the 354th Fighter Wing Live Coronavirus Virtual Town Hall. Today is June 1st, and this is our 12th update to the wing. I'm Kay Nissen, and today we have with us Chief Loken, the 354th Fighter Wing Command Chief, and Colonel Skalitzky, the Operations Group Commander. While we're live, we'll be taking questions in the comments section throughout the show, so please let us know what's on your minds. Up first, as always, is the update, where we'll fill in all the changes from last show. We've actually been off for about 2 weeks now since we've taken a break for the Memorial Day weekend, so we'll have a few things to catch up on. We're going to start first with where we are with COVID-19 numbers in the state of Alaska. So yesterday, the Alaska Department of Health and Human Services announced that the state had the largest single-day increase in confirmed cases since the start of the pandemic. That total number was 27 cases in the state of Alaska, but we will note that none of those confirmed cases occurred in Fairbanks. The last positive case in Fairbanks was reported on May 9th, and in total, Alaska has 460 confirmed cases with 368 recoveries. So that's what's going on in the state, but let's talk a little bit more about Eielson Air Force Base specific updates. So, Chief Loken, what do you have for us as far as the updates for the base?
Well, thanks, Captain Nissen.
Nissen, yeah.
Nissen, all right, I tried. So yeah, like you said, the 27 new cases, they're all down south from what I understand, so no new cases in the local area. So that's always good, and we need to attribute that to us staying safe, wearing our masks, washing our hands, doing the social distancing thing, and attributing that. So thanks to everybody for continuing to do that. And I'm going to remind you a couple of times probably throughout this episode here to continue to do that. So as far as changes and updates, there's not a whole lot. The biggest thing that you've probably noticed is the change in the name. We did drop down to HPCon Bravo. However, we are still doing many things within HPCon Charlie. The number of gathering of people, that's probably the biggest change that we put out. We initially put out 50, and we kind of stepped a little bit forward, more forward than we needed to as a wing, so we pulled that back to be in line with the other military installations in Alaska to 25. So please make sure if you are doing the social gatherings, you're keeping it limited to 25 people.
And for meetings too, right?
For meetings as well, right. When we're conducting any sort of business. No more than 25 in whatever setting you're in. And of course, a reminder again, the 6 feet social distancing, masking, and washing your hands afterwards, or wiping in, wiping out, that kind of thing. So those are the biggest things. The restricted movement policy is probably another thing that's on people's mind out there, and that is not changing anytime soon. The DoD put out some new guidance. We are still waiting for Air Force level, MAJCOM level, and NAF level guidance on that. The letter is out there that talks about the restriction of movement and what the DoD wants to do with that. But again, we're still, as a wing, we're waiting on our higher headquarters to give us some more guidance on the way we're going to operate within that restriction of movement. So as it stands right now, we are going to continue to operate as we do. If you come in from another state, you're going to do your 14 days of quarantine. But there's more guidance out there again that the state has put out, and we'll fall in line with that once we get a hold of it and try to filter through it. So again, that's probably the biggest question I can think of that it's on people's minds is that 14-day thing. Is that going away? And the answer to that is no, not yet. So please keep doing that. And then again, yeah, it's a reminder to stay healthy and make sure that you're keeping that personal responsibility going of washing your hands, wearing your mask, in and out of the AFB's situation or AFB's the BX, food, all of that stuff. Even when you're downtown, you're going to see a lot of people that are I guess they're getting tired of it, the civilians, and not wanting to do it, and they're getting a little bit lax on those things. But please, as a military member, military affiliated, dependent, civilian contractor, that kind of thing, please make sure you're still doing those things to help keep us safe when you come back onto the base and interact with your workforce. So please keep doing that.
So Colonel Skalitzky, I don't know if you wanted to add on anything. There's sometimes a little bit of confusion between what state health mandates are and what our command directives are. So.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me here. As we look at that, it's pretty simple for us, especially for the military members. We're beholden to the command directives, and for anybody, whenever you're on base, you're beholden to the command directives that govern how we behave and how we're going to act on base. So even though the state might go a different direction, they might have some different procedures, we're beholden to the guidance of the installation commander, the 354th Fighter Wing commander, for how we're going to conduct ourselves on base. So yeah, you're going to see some differences in between where the state's going and where we are. are, but that's because we're also charged a little bit differently as military members to, number one, care for our airmen and families, and we do that through these command directives and adhering to the restrictions that we have in place with respect to COVID. So that does set up a little bit of a not necessarily contradiction, but there is going to be differing guidance in there. But reconcile that if you stick within if you stick within the boundaries of the command directives, I guarantee you're going to be a lot safe. You're going to be safe because that's our number one focus, our number one priority here on base. So I ask that everyone keep those in mind as we go. And it's going to be tough, right? Because we're getting into change of command season. We're in PCS season. All those things. There's going to be a high desire to get a lot of folks together in one spot. But we do have that 25-person limit for any type of party, any type of going away thing that you might have in a unit or on base. I really need you to follow that. I just went to one on Friday for the Combat Training Squadron. They did a great event, and they did something really unique. They set it up with time slots. So they had periods from 4:30 to 5:30, 5:30 to 6:30, then 6:30 on, and they broke it up and said, here's your time slot. And they were able to get a lot of people through and have a really great event, say goodbye to a really great command team, and it was kept within the limits. So there's a lot of ways to get after this. There's a lot more open than you might think if you just come up with some creative ways to get after it. But again, it's all about taking care of airmen and their families. That's really about it.
Fantastic. You're listening to the 354th Fighter Wing Live Digital Town Hall. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll start answering your questions. So please go ahead and throw those in the comments. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're listening to the 354th Fighter Wing Coronavirus Town Hall. I'm Kay Nissen here with Chief Master Sergeant Loken and Colonel Sklisky. We're ready for some rapid fire questions. So Chief, I'm going to throw the first one at you. What is the policy on fitness testing for airmen? I hear that this has changed again from, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So if you can just catch us up.
Sure, it's a continuous changing process because we're trying to protect ourselves and our airmen, right, and still maintain a state of readiness, because that's what it comes down to as far as fitness is readiness. So yes, the Air Force has suspended all fitness testing through October of this year, until we can get a safe condition or a better way to do it. The waist measurement, I believe, has been rescinded as well. If you have a test that's due in October, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, then it is suspended or not. You will not have to test until October of 21. So there's some leeway there. Just make sure you're talking to your supervisor and through your chain of command, and your chain of command is talking to the FSS just to make sure that they're following the rules and understanding when they're actually come due, because there's some weird math in there when it comes down to what date you're due on, and it could give you a little bit more time than you need. But that being said, with the waste measurement going away, that brings up some consternation with some people sometimes. It's a thing. It's a way to keep us safe and still maintain readiness. So I think it's a great way to get after it and try and get us back to normal as soon as we can, but safely. So I think it's important to do that, and it's a personal responsibility to make sure that even though your fitness center may be closed or you can't use it right now, or you're on ROM or whatever, but there is still some things you can do to maintain that readiness state and maintain your fitness. So I think that's probably the most important thing right now. When you PT test is important, but being physically ready for anything when it comes to our job is probably the most important, and we still need to maintain that. And in my opinion, there's really no excuse to not be, and we can't use the COVID thing to lean on for that. So we got to find a way.
Right, and I would also say, I mean, our gym actually never did close to
Right.
active duty airmen. So.
And in fact, we have it's open to more. We open it up even further. So, and exactly like you're saying, Chief, you hit the nail on the head with that one. That the fitness testing has been suspended, but our responsibility to stay fit to fight has not. That is still a personal responsibility. If anyone that knows me knows, I think there's two things that every airman and really every person controls: your fitness and your attitude. Doesn't matter what job you're in, doesn't matter what your supervisor thinks about you. You control your fitness and you control your attitude, and there's means to get after those. COVID hasn't changed any of that.
Absolutely. Okay, so we actually did get a question from Corey Malrain. What is the guidance for out-of-state visitors in the quarantine? So this is a tough one because there is a lot of what feels like conflicting guidance. So let's kind of break it down with what is the current Eielson Air Force Base Command Directive for out-of-state visitors.
So for an out-of-state visitor that is trying to visit somebody who's on base, because it gets really nuanced really quickly, right? So if my example, I live on base here. If I have an out-of-state visitor, I can't just bring that person on base. I need approval from my chain to actually get that person on base. When they're here, they're also required under command directives to go through the 14-day quarantine because they came from out of state. So that is the guidance now. Again, that's something that if they're going to be in restriction of movement, I would need to set up some place where they can effectively do that on base and make sure that that's approved in order to be able to do that and have that person here on base. So that's the process. That's different downtown because if they're off base, there's now it's under the state mandate, but if they're with that military member, and you might have to correct me to 100% on this one, but if it is a relative with somebody off base, our desire is still that you would maintain your distance from them and do that, but it falls under the state at that point. Right now, currently, there's still a restriction of movement for the state of Alaska, but that's what is under discussion right now from the governor's office of updating that guidance. So there will be, again, as we talked about earlier, there's some differences there. On base versus off base, you're going to see a little bit of a difference there. But and I know Colonel Anger's online, so he can correct me to 100% with if I said anything out of turn there. But that is still the guidance, is that if you're on base, it's still the 14-day restriction of movement requirement. Off base is a little bit different.
Yeah, I think that's 100% correct. And what we know that is changing, at least for the state, and what a lot of might cause confusion is on June 5th, the state mandate is supposed to remove restriction and put in place testing at the airports or proof of testing before you travel. So we'll start to see a little bit of tourism happen in Alaska, but from what I understand, it's still our job to maintain distance and stay healthy as active duty members. And that includes our own family members who are visiting us.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that the other important piece on that, like I said, is base access. We still, without command approval, you can't just bring somebody on base unless they have that command approval.
Awesome. Well, I'm standing by to see if there's any other questions coming in. It doesn't look like we do, so we're going to go ahead and get ready to take a break. So thank you for those questions right there. Keep the questions coming. We're going to take this break, and when we return, we'll wrap up the show with some last words from the Chief and Colonel here. Thank you. Welcome back. This is the Coronavirus Live Town Hall. I'm Kay Nissen here with Chief Loken and Colonel Skaliksky. We took a few of your rapid fire questions. I saw one sneak in there at the last minute from Lindy Cherie. Is there any idea of when the Yukon Club is actually going to open?
Yeah, so I don't have the specifics on the Yukon Club. We have a recovery team that's going through looking at when we can open some of these services back up and what that looks like when we do. The next round of openings is scheduled for the 8th of June. So I can keep an eye out and we can on whether or not the Yukon Club will be in there or not. I know it's a point of discussion. I gave my inputs to the process, but we're letting the recovery team guide us through some of these decisions, and we're taking their input very seriously. So I don't have a solid date for you. I wish I did, but we are looking at exactly how we're opening these things back up. And like I said, 8th of June is kind of the next tranche of openings that we're expecting.
Appropriate time to plug the website with command directives opening. So we usually do post those facility opening hours if things change on our website. So that's www.eielson.af.mil. You just click on the coronavirus button there, and we'll keep you updated. So June 8th is the next time, then I'd recommend checking the site on June 8th if any changes come up. So anyways, we're pretty much at the time of, we've answered most of the questions that come in. I'm seeing Corey ask, will the stream be saved anywhere? Corey, the stream will be right here on the website, or on the Facebook, so we'll make sure that this is here, and we do re-upload again on YouTube to make sure that it comes through right. But anyways, we'll move to some last words. So Chief, you have any last words for us as we're kind of ending the show here?
The last things I would like to say is just, and I know the Colonel's going to hit on it, but just maintain that personal responsibility of washing your hands and that kind of thing, and safety when it comes to the COVID. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the front gate, just so that everybody gets a reminder of that the process has changed. If you haven't been off base in a while, on Friday night we closed the main gate for some construction to get done, hopefully in the next 2 or 3 months. But when you come across, when you're coming from the Richardson, coming across there, that stop sign is now covered, and that seems to be a bit of confusion for people because they're used to stopping before coming across the street or before making the turn, or if you're going to go left, I should say. But you do not have to stop. Just keep traffic moving. If the visitor center is still open, so if you need to go down to that side of the base or that side of the street there to take that right, you can still do that, and that's why that right turn lane is still wide open, so you can still get down there. And if we have to use that for extra queuing lines so we don't back up traffic up onto the Richardson, we can use that as well. So, but just be advised, you do not have to stop. So please keep moving. Keep an eye out for the defenders out there. It's some austere terrain that they're working through, and we're getting through it to try and take better care of them. So that they're more comfortable providing us security so we can do our job. Cool.
Yeah. Sir, do you have any last words for us?
You bet. No, I'm glad that the Chief touched on the personal responsibility, because ultimately it is everybody's personal responsibility on adhering to these COVID restrictions and really these efforts that are meant to keep us safe. And right now, the key thing is avoiding complacency and ensuring compliance with these things. But it's compliance, and it's also, like we said, a responsibility because we hold ourselves as military members to a higher standard than a lot of other walks of life might. So it's really important that we don't regress on some of these things. We've made a lot of progress. We've invested a lot in this. It's important we don't regress. I'll share a story that General Crum, the 11th Air Force Commander, shared with us the other day in one of the meetings. So he had gone to Bass Pro Shop. Weather's nice. People are getting out fishing and getting after all the things that we up here in Alaska love to do. And so he throws on his mask and walks into the store, maintain the appropriate distancing and trying to follow all the rules and stuff that are laid out. And of course, as he goes in, he comes across a couple airmen that didn't have their mask, and actually these are people that he knew, and so there was some recognition. And sheepishly, one goes for the pocket and pulls out the mask and slowly puts it on, kind of looking the other way to not get dimed out by the 11th Air Force Commander, which I wouldn't want to get that either, right? But that's just it. Like, we've got to have compliance with these things. It's a personal responsibility. Be doing the right thing. And it breeds. The more we do the right thing, I firmly believe, the more that other people will continue to, and the safer we'll all be. But the other thing with that is making sure that people understand that mistakes are going to happen, right? So sometimes, oh shoot, I forgot my mask, and all those things like that. That happens. I get it. But the big thing I need is with that compliance. I don't want anyone being scared to not come forward and tell me when they screwed up or when they're feeling sick and how it happened. If you're feeling sick, please stay home. Don't get anybody else sick, and please contact your chain so that we can get you tested if we need to, and we can trace back what happened. Like I said, at that point in time, I don't care so much how it happened. I just care that we get the data so we can keep this thing locked down. We've done such a great job with it. Let's keep it going. So we do that by the responsibility and avoiding complacency. So that's it.
Yeah, no, fantastic last words. Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Colonel, for spending some time with us today. That's all the time we have, so thank you to everyone who's been tuning in. Please help us share information by sharing this Town Hall recording to anyone who might have questions about Town Hall. And if you do have any more questions that we didn't get to today, go ahead and drop them in the comments section, and we'll make sure that we get back to you on that. So thanks again, take care, and stay healthy.